Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to yet another edition of Meet Up with Mallory, the virtual coffee hour that we have been doing every single week the Senate is in session. And we've added some bonus summer episodes just to make sure that we are staying in touch with you even when the Senate is not in session in Lansing. So for anybody who's new, welcome. We are thrilled to have you. This is something that we do in our office to provide a very casual, hopefully easily accessible way to get an update on what's happening in the state, in your local state government, and share some good news from our community. This is also an opportunity for you to ask me questions live. So we stream this live across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So whatever platform you're joining us from, welcome. We are very, very happy to have you. And when we get to the Q&A portion at the end, I will bring on Liz from our office, who is our Director of Constituent Services and Outreach, who will moderate the questions. So if you do have a question or a comment, no matter what platform you're on, be sure to share your name if that is not already obvious from your screen name, what city you are representing, your home base, even if you are away, and then fire away with your question. And we will try to get through as many as we can, knowing that it is the end of summer and it's a beautiful day outside, and we want to let people get on with their weekends. So with that, I will jump right into it. First up, we wanted to share the news that Oakland County has announced that it is offering a third dose, a booster dose of the COVID-19 vaccine for immunocompromised individuals in line with recommendations from the CDC. Immunocompromised residents can now receive a third dose of the vaccine through the Oakland County Health Division. The boosters will be administered at the North Oakland Health Center in Pontiac and South Oakland Health Center in Southfield. The health division will host a third dose of clinics in Novi, Pontiac, Rochester, and Southfield next week. An appointment is recommended, but walk-ins are also welcome. So there's more information on that on Oakland County's website, and we will share links to stories in the chat as well so that you can follow up on information there. So if you are immunocompromised, if somebody in your family is immunocompromised, especially if they are not on social media or watching any of these, be sure to let them know that that is available, especially as we have the Delta variant spreading. And we're heading into the fall, believe it or not. So people will be heading back indoors, get in as much of that great outdoor time as you can. And we want to make sure everybody stays safe as we head into the fall and winter. We have been receiving a lot of questions and concerns about masks in school. So, I think across the board, nobody can debate that in-person school is preferred, is better, especially after the last year and a half we've had. Kids want to be back in school. They want to see their friends. Teachers want to be able to teach in the classroom. And the best tool that we have for that now, especially for students who are under the age of 12 and not eligible to get vaccinated yet, is widespread masking. So I know MDHHS has issued the strongest recommendation following CDC guidelines, recommending that anybody in school buildings wears widespread masking to prevent the spread. We have seen a concerning rise in sickness and hospitalization around the country for students. I've been following a couple of the other states who have started school already, and some of the schools around the country have already shut down because staff, teachers, and students are contracting the virus, forced to quarantine, and that is not where we want to be. I can say that without question. So I also want to address an incident that happened in Birmingham at the school board meeting where a number of parents spoke out against the mask requirement, but most concerningly, an individual shouted Heil and gave a Nazi salute in the meeting. This is incredibly disturbing and is just worrying. And I want to touch on kind of what has happened over the past year and a half where, our office has been on the front lines of a lot of people's concerns, calls, questions, and the immediate jumping to mentions of the Holocaust, of Hitler, of Nazism. It is very worrying, and it is flat out unacceptable. We have seen a rise in racism, misogyny, hate speech, anti-Semitism throughout our district. I posted on our Facebook page about a comment made by an official in Royal Oak who compared the mayor to Hitler showing up at a synagogue. And then we've seen this incident in Birmingham. And, very candidly, as somebody married to a Jewish man and raising a daughter who, is participating in a member of the Jewish community, and just somebody who recognizes and appreciates how horrible the Holocaust was. This was a systemic rounding up and execution of 6 million people based on their religious beliefs. And that is not what is happening here. So we need to get to a place where we can have debates and discussions that do not default to hate speech. It is eerily reminiscent of what we saw on April 30th of last year at our state capitol, where we had a large, angry, heavily armed group of people who came into our Capitol building, who came into the Senate chambers under the guise of protesting COVID-19 restrictions. But really, and I've said this very publicly in op-eds, it was something much darker than. We saw people showing up, not only with weapons and heavily, armor and threatening us. There's a photo that has become famous at this point of 4 heavily armed men in the gallery in the Senate chambers. And that was right behind my head. I sit below that on the Senate floor. And they were taunting us. They were intimidating us. They were trying to cause chaos and get their point across via threats. And we are seeing that escalate in our local communities as well. And we have to call it out as unacceptable across the board when we see it. This is not acceptable. We cannot default to threats and intimidation and violence and hate and anti-Semitism as a way to get our message across. And I will continue to say that as these instances happen. And, I had a conversation with a constituent yesterday where when this is the tactic that is used to express an opinion, your opinion may very well be valid, but it does a disservice to that message if that's what's out there. Because for somebody on the receiving end, it's just threatening and intimidation, and it is not something to be taken seriously. And it is not welcome in our communities. So there is no good way to pivot into different news, but wanted to share also, in case you're not aware, the Dream Cruise is officially back. It is officially back this weekend. So if you love the Dream Cruise, have a great time. I know we did not have an official Dream Cruise last year, so get out there, be safe. It is outdoors, and I've been very encouraged to see, the news at events like Lollapalooza, where, there were tens of thousands of people in attendance in Chicago. That event did require either proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test to attend, but very, very low spread of COVID at that event. Now, obviously for Dream Cruise, anybody is welcome to drive their car or sit on the side of the road. So, be aware of your space, still practice everything that we know from the past year and a half, social distance, but outdoors we know is very, very safe with air circulation. So if you love the Dream Cruise, get out and enjoy it. If you don't love the Dream Cruise, just be aware that it's happening, plan accordingly, change your routes, head up north, head out of town, whatever you're doing. Either way, have a great time this weekend. I will be at the Dream Cruise myself, walking around. I always like to go. I am, as many of you know, I come from the auto industry and am a huge car nerd. So I love the Dream Cruise. I think it's very cool that in our district, we have the largest single day car enthusiast event in the world. And not only that everybody's welcome. That's what I love about it. It's not just for people with very expensive, very exclusive cars. You can drive whatever you want in the Dream Cruise. And I think people who line the side of the roads appreciate classic cars, beaters, new cars, or whatever you want to drive out there. So I will be there. If you see me, say hello. And we will move on to updates from the Capitol. So we have been on our summer in district work period. So we have not had regularly scheduled Senate session. Senate session, for those who may not know, is when we actually meet in the Senate building. So I have a small model of the Capitol right here. So that's when we meet in this building in Lansing, and when you see, all of us sitting on the floor and voting on bills. So one of my colleagues compared this, and I really liked this analogy, that Senate session is kind of like the final performance of a play, where a lot of the work happens ahead of session. That's where we write and draft legislation, where we meet with constituents, where if we do have a bill that we are trying to push forward, we are meeting with stakeholders, building allies, potentially getting co-sponsors. All of that work happens behind the scenes when we're not on the Senate floor. And bills typically don't go up for voting until they have the votes. So that's something that I think a lot of people don't realize, is that most bills that pass, they pass broadly on a bipartisan basis, and that's what happens in session. So just because we're not in session does not mean we're not doing anything. And actually, I love this work period because this is when I can be in the district. My team and a bunch of volunteers were out on doors in Troy last week. 17 of us connected with over 1,000 residents in Troy just to check in, especially after the past year and a half we've had, and say hello and check in to see how you're doing and make sure you know how to contact us and about these events. So if you're joining us after getting a flyer or hearing from us last week, welcome. But we will be back in regularly scheduled session beginning in September. And once we are back, we will return to having these coffee hours every week that the Senate is in session to make sure you have updates on what was being voted on and what happened in Lansing in your state legislature. The other thing I want to touch on that we have been working on is a number of my colleagues and myself, including Senators Chang, Baer, Ollier, Representative Ayash, and Senator Irwin, and a number of others, have been working throughout the summer on a climate resilience plan. So, the timing of this could not be more important when we've seen 300-year floods in the period of just a few weeks. And we have seen, especially here in our district, power outages that lasted up to a week. We had a windstorm that hit last Wednesday with winds up to 60 miles an hour that knocked down trees all across our district, and power outages that I know some people just came back online yesterday throughout our district. And one of the things that's most important to me is there are two sides of climate change and climate, right? I think that what we had traditionally talked about is humans' impact on the climate. And the IPCC report, which is a UN report that just came out last week or 2 weeks ago, really hammers home that, as we well know, the scientific consensus is that our actions are directly impacting and accelerating the rate of climate change. So acknowledging that, yes, the climate does change naturally, but humans' activity is accelerating that and leading to horrific extreme weather events. And this year has been an exception, but also no exception, because these have increased every single year, where we see fires. We have seen, here in Michigan, hazy air and red suns because of fires on the West Coast. We have flooding here. We've had multiple tornadoes, the power outages that we've seen. So the other side of it, and I think this is the side that we are working on right now, is climate resilience. We cannot build our infrastructure the same way we always have and expect a different result, knowing that the climate has changed, knowing that these extreme weather instances and events are not the exception anymore. They are the norm. So we need to change how we are building and maintaining our infrastructure to respond more appropriately, so that we are not in this situation every time there's a windstorm or some rain, that people are looking outside their window and terrified when they see the rain coming, or looking at a tree falling down and wondering if you have to throw out everything in your fridge again and lose hundreds of dollars worth of food, or breast milk if you've been saving breast milk, or, I know a number of our constituents had prescriptions that they could not get because our pharmacies were closed, and sent out prescriptions to other pharmacies. And that was chaos, just trying to figure out where to get your prescription when we didn't have power to many of our pharmacies. So we'll have more details on that soon, but it was a comprehensive climate resilience plan, particularly related to flooding, sewer and stormwater management, which we know has been an issue for years. Grand Rapids, a number of years ago, did separate their sewer system so that you don't have stormwater and sewage water mixing together. That's not something we have here in Metro Detroit that we desperately need to have. And planning for, if we are looking at a highway project or road expansion, that we're working on legislation to require that be done in partnership with EGLE, the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, to ensure that there is enough stormwater management, runoff control, and then we're exploring alternative options and not just building or expanding a highway in the same way that we would traditionally do, knowing that there is an increased likelihood of flooding. So more on that soon. We will share links to that, and there's a PDF that summarizes the plan that we've put out yet. We are working on the bills, and we will plan to introduce that package this fall, and we'll keep everybody posted. All right, so we are jumping into my favorite segment, and I will pop this open so everybody can see it. And now I have lost my script here. So you know what? You're going to bear with us. We might not have imagery this time. But our first up good news report is the city of Berkeley. We have an Olympian. Yay! I am so excited. So if you guys didn't notice the last few times we did coffee hours, I love the Olympics. Love it. My life shuts down for the 2 weeks that we have the Olympics. I am decked out in Team USA gear. My husband posted a video of me silently celebrating, running around our living room, waving an American flag when the U.S. women's soccer team won a game at, 6 a.m. or something like that, because my baby was asleep and I didn't want to wake her up. So when I found out that Berkeley, we have our own Olympian, Kate Nye, 22 years old of Berkeley, won the best finish for the United States in over 20 years in weightlifting. I watched this competition and just such a badass. She was like very calm and controlled during this deadlift, which was awesome. Nye is an Oakland University student, and she won the silver medal during the weightlifting competition in Tokyo. So congratulations to Kate. That's so exciting, and I just geek out about it. So yay, Berkeley, and yay, Kate, and thank you for representing our community, for being very upfront about your mental health. That was a theme throughout this year's Olympics, particularly for female Olympians, that I am so proud of, that we are now becoming more and more comfortable with speaking about that, especially on the world's largest stage. And thank you for representing the United States in such an incredible way, and showing that women, especially Michigan women, are strong as hell. All right, next up, the 64th Annual Distinguished Women of Michigan State Scholarship Program announced its winners. The Distinguished Young Women of Michigan is part of a national scholarship program that promotes and rewards scholarship, leadership, and talent in young women. 2 young women from Troy were met with distinguished titles and earned scholarships. Sharanya Swaminathan, and I apologize if I butchered your name. People butcher my name all the time. If I did, please reach out and tell me how to pronounce it properly. I want to learn and get better, and always want to try my best. So a Troy High School senior was selected as the Distinguished Young Woman of Michigan statewide 2022. So congratulations. And Jayanthi Gupta of International Academy East was selected as Troy's Distinguished Woman of 2022. So congratulations to you both, and best of luck with college and future plans, and put those scholarships to good use. Finally, we want to talk about, we love a good mural, and I'm going to see if I can show this, because you need a visual for a mural, right? So there is a new mural in our district. Let's see. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, I think we can see it. It's very small. I apologize for that. Ooh, that's better. Y'all, you think we would be really good at this by now, but sometimes there are still technical difficulties. Okay, so there is a new mural at Advia Bank. So this is on Woodward, right around 11 Mile. And this mural celebrates the Woodward Dream Cruise. This was painted by Detroit area artist Samar Salam. The mural will launch a campaign to support the Children's Miracle Network. So I love a good mural. I love public art, but I also love when there is public art for good. The credit union will be donating $25 to the Children's Miracle Network through September 13th, every time anyone takes a photo of the mural and shares it on social media with the hashtag Advia Mural. That's ADVIA, as you can see right here in the mural, and we will drop information into the chat as well. And Team McMorrow is planning on getting out there and snapping a couple pictures of the mural because every time you take a picture, $25 to the Children's Miracle Network. So go check it out, snap a pic, let's support the Children's Miracle Network and celebrate public art. And then finally, tonight, Berkeley Cruise Fest, Berkeley's annual Woodward Dream Cruise event, happens on Friday, the day before the Dream Cruise. So that will be tonight, starting at 6:30. The parade travels west down 12 Mile, beginning at Woodward and ending at Greenfield. There will be entertainment. Darren Moore on the 14th floor. The location for the live entertainment is Rabina north of 12 Mile. And the start time for the entertainment portion will be after the parade has concluded at around 7:30. And new for 2021, Berkeley Parks and Recreation is excited to host an outdoor movie in front of the neighborhood shop. And they will be showing Grease, which is a very appropriate movie for the Woodward Dream Cruise. So go out and celebrate. Go get all of the events this weekend or avoid them. Like I said, just be aware that Dream Cruise is back and it's happening. And with that, that wraps up our program portion. And I'm going to bring on Liz, our Director of Constituent Services. Every week I try to think of like a fun way to introduce you, and then I forget. It's like on my list of things to do. So Liz is here. And Liz, what questions or comments do we have this week?
We have a couple, but I just want to say there's some very kind and positive individuals in the comments. So just want to say hello to them as well.
Yay. I love that. Somebody in a local social media page has started just on Fridays, just sharing one good thing. And it's such a great thread. Like it is exactly what we need on Fridays. So for people who are jumping in just with positive vibes to carry into the weekend, especially during this chaotic time, thank you. And it's much appreciated.
Could all use some positivity.
Yeah.
So the first question is from Anne from Rochester Hills. She submitted a question via our Submit Your Question form that we sent out in our e-newsletters. So they want to know about the lowered payments to survivors of car accidents for long-term care. They said, I understand there's a very large amount of money in the fund collected by insurance companies and intended for these survivors. Why can't the money in this fund be directed to these victims and their caregivers?
That is such a great question. And it has been one of the more heartbreaking and frustrating experiences that I've had as a legislator. I serve on the Insurance and Banking Committee in the Senate. And one of the first things that we started reviewing in 2019 was SB1, which is the auto no fault reform package that did pass and was signed into law. And, the first thing I'll say is I think a lot of people had the best intentions with this. I know Michigan does have some of the steepest auto insurance rates in the country. But, as I was digging into this issue, what we found was when you kind of factor out Detroit and you look at our district, the rest of the state, Michigan's insurance rates were actually average. We were about middle of the pack, which points to there's got to be some issues related to redlining, discrimination that are impacting specifically Detroit and not the rest of the state. But actually what that meant was, okay, if you look at statewide, if we are paying about average nationwide, we actually have had, we no longer do, the best coverage in the entire country. So our previous auto no fault insurance program guaranteed that if you were in a catastrophic car accident, that you would receive up to a lifetime of coverage and rehabilitation. So I have met with survivors of catastrophic accidents who, in a traditional healthcare system, probably wouldn't have survived. But with our auto no fault system, we're able to access really complex brain rehabilitation or surgeries and work with specialists, sometimes for a long period of time, to maybe not fully recover, but still live a long and fulfilling life, even after a catastrophic car accident. This is something where here in Oakland County, in my district particularly, it has been pretty universal across the board that legislators from this area opposed changes to this system, Republican or Democrat. We have consistently kind of voted against reforming this system because we fundamentally knew that it would put people's lives at risk. So The question is on the fund. So the MCCA is the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association, which does collect funds from all the insurance companies. And one of the things we've been pushing for is more transparency with that fund. The Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association claims that the money in there is only going to be enough to ensure protection for all of the people who are currently benefiting from the system. But what went into law, effective on July 1st, made the current law, the auto no fault reform, retroactive, which I fundamentally don't believe was the original intent of the law. And I signed on to a letter encouraging the courts to take a look at that, because anybody who's already in the system, you've paid into it, you are guaranteed a lifetime of care, and fair pay rates for direct care workers. This is very difficult, emotional, and physically laborious work to be responsible for somebody's care. And we know a lot of people are losing their jobs, and companies responsible for direct care are closing, and it is horrible. It's horrible right now. I've spoken out against it. I helped push for, originally it was $10 million. We pushed it up to $25 million in relief for direct care company services who are impacted by these changes. But we know that there's no way to plan a business around a small pot of money. And we need a fix for this bill, the reform, to make sure that we are not sentencing people effectively to die or to lose their care, which is where we're at right now. So that was a long answer. We're still working on it. I'm encouraging my colleagues to take up and push for a fix for this, because there's a lot of people who are left out in very, very bad situations.
Okay, the next question is Megan and Clausen via Facebook. They asked, will oral chemo fairness finally get a Senate hearing this year?
Great question. I can't say. So just kind of to set how the legislature works. I had a tweet thread about this yesterday, and I think a lot of people may not be aware that this is how it works. So without getting hyper partisan about Democrat or Republican, the majority party, whoever that is in the legislature, controls the chamber effectively. So in the state of Michigan, the majority party controls all of the committees. They control the schedule. They chair all of the committees, and they decide exclusively which bills get taken up and which bills don't. I've had the opportunity to meet with other legislators from around the country, from other state legislatures, and some states require that every single bill gets a hearing. Michigan is not one of those states. So I can't say with certainty if that bill will be taken up this term. But if you want to follow up via email with our office, and we'll make sure you have that email information, we can share the email contact information for the committee chair, which we always encourage residents to do, is contact committee chairs if you are following a bill that has been referred to a specific committee, and ask that bill get a hearing. Because even though I am your state senator, a committee chair, represents not only their district, they do represent the entire state for that issue area and for those bills. So we do encourage people to contact committee chairs, and we will share that information to advocate for that bill.
Perfect. And then there's two questions from Jenny on Facebook. The first question is whether or not MDHHS is planning or is going to implement a mask mandate for schools. And then the second one is about if the legislature is going to do anything about mandated weight limits for roads.
Two very different questions. Okay.
Very different questions.
Very different questions. So tackling masks first. So we've heard from a lot of people on this, right? So who, especially coming after the past year and a half, and we've seen first it was the governor, and then MDHHS taking over to issue public health orders related to public health. MDHHS has issued the strongest possible guidelines that school districts should adopt for the safety of staff, students, and teachers, mask requirements for the fall, especially with Delta moving forward. But to the best of my knowledge, I am not aware that they are planning on issuing a mandate from the state level. And, we have had, and I will just be very candid with frustrations here, a number of colleagues in the majority party who have issued threats and letters to both the state and counties saying that they will withhold funding in the budget process should counties or the state issue mask mandates. And, it is, I say frustrating a lot. I don't know what other word to use. It is shocking to me that, we now have very easily accessible tools to make this virus manageable and to make sure that we can go about our normal lives. I think a perfect example of this is I talked to a woman in Troy when my team was out in the neighborhood who, just as a normal, regular person who says she doesn't really particularly follow one party or the other, but she just looks at it and she says, this shouldn't be politicized. We now know, like, everybody who can get the shot, and you might have to wear a mask sometimes. And if we do that, we can all go about our normal lives and feel safe about it, because we know that if we don't, and we've seen this around the country, if we pull back on those tools, or we don't have, sufficient vaccination rates, or we have people who are going out unmasked, especially with low vaccination rates, that the virus spreads again. I mean, that is just the reality now. So, I am encouraged that so many of our local school districts have taken the responsibility and taken this seriously to recommend mask requirements for the fall. That is something that the legislature passed to empower local school districts to do that. And I think that's a powerful tool we have now, especially knowing that, there is the politics, and I hate that it comes down to this, especially when we're talking about people's lives and safety. There is the politics in Lansing of, we have a budget to pass, and we have colleagues who are in the majority party who control the budget process and the bills and the schedule, who have said they will withhold funding if mandates move forward. And, it's just a very depressing situation to be in, but school districts do have that authority. We have seen many of our local school districts taking that seriously. And, I know how hard that is, especially for school board members, for administrators, and for school board members who are effectively volunteers to be taking some of the attacks and vitriol that we've seen, like we saw in Birmingham just recently. So, I want to thank school board members for, being on the front lines for that. But that's what I know about MDHHS right now, and wanted to share a little bit about, the unfortunate reality in Lansing right now. And just to really hammer that point home, there is legislation in Lansing right now in both the House and the Senate that would prohibit schools from requiring masks or any vaccines, as well as businesses. There was a hearing in the House yesterday that did not feature any medical experts who support or who acknowledge the effectiveness of vaccines. There were a lot of conspiracies thrown around again, but it's frustrating to see, it's local control until locals decide to do something other than what, kind of this minority base wants. And that's what we're dealing with right now in Lansing, is the risk of, is there legislation that's going to pass that would prohibit schools from putting in place very basic safety measures to ensure that everybody in the school buildings stays safe and that we can keep schools open this fall.
Okay, and then our last question right now, in case anyone has any last minute ones they want to throw in there. Sharon from Birmingham on Facebook said, I'm delighted to hear of your work for climate change mitigation. Is there anything in the plan to promote the installation of solar panels for residential electricity generation with battery backup? Some city codes prohibit installation of on the street facing aspects of a home, even if that placement would be optimal for electricity generation.
That is such a great question, and thank you for asking it. While that specific piece is not in the climate resilience plan that I discussed earlier, it is legislation that I have been working on since taking office. So we had a bill last year, 2019, last term. So, every 2 years is a new term, in the Senate Energy and Technology Committee to eliminate the residential solar cap here in Michigan. So in Michigan, our cap on the amount of energy that can be generated from residential via solar is 1% of the total energy generated statewide. It is the strictest cap in the entire country. And we've seen, the rest of the states range from having no cap at all to having kind of somewhere in the middle. And what we've seen is there's really no engineering or safety reason behind this cap. That's kind of been an argument from some utilities and others, is that having more people with residential solar is risky to the grid, but that hasn't borne out in other states. So we are expecting a report from the MPSC to study this issue and provide recommendations. That study should be coming back to the legislature in the fall. So the bill to remove the solar cap was introduced actually by Senator Ed McBroom, who's a Republican from the Upper Peninsula. It was a bipartisan bill. It had broad support on both sides of the aisle and unfortunately didn't move forward last time. But it is something that, especially knowing what we know about the storms and the management that we are facing now, anything to provide alternatives, especially as battery storage becomes a more available technology for people, that if you installed some solar panels, you could have a battery backup, maybe stored in your garage that could power your house during an outage. We're looking into that. So if you're interested in following that, sign up for our email newsletter and we'll be sure to update when we get back into session and the Energy and Technology Committee starts to meet again.
All right. Yeah, that's only questions that we have now. So any last minute ones, I guess.
Perfect. Last call for questions. And if anybody doesn't have anything while we're waiting, want to wish everybody a very fun weekend. Like I said, if you're heading to Dream Cruise, have a great time, be safe. If you don't like the Dream Cruise, plan accordingly, get around, head out of town.
Yeah, we left some like traffic information in the comments. So
yeah. So, and people have been asking, like, do you think it's going to be a big Dream Cruise this year? I honestly have no idea. So I'm sure people who have been to Dream Cruise, that some years it's literally millions of people, like millions. And then one year, it started raining and it cleared out pretty early that I was at. So it could go either way. I don't know if there's going to be pent up demand from last year and people coming out in full force, or people, not quite ready to re-engage. So we'll see. Like I said, I'll be there. Liz, what are your plans for the weekend?
I'm going home. My friend, her parents got a hot tub. So we're going to go enjoy that with some like little cocktails and stuff. So that's the only plan I have.
That's a good suggestion for people not going to the Dream Cruise. If you know somebody with a hot tub, that seems like a good backup plan. All right. If there are no additional questions, we'll let everybody go. Thanks everybody for tuning in as always. Please share this. We want to make sure people know that we do this. And especially for people who are new, who have moved here or are not super involved, we think this is a great way just to like listen in and hear what's going on. And we will catch you very soon. Oh,
I'm going to sneak in a happy early birthday to you, Senator McMorrow, coming up on there. So just wanted to sneak it in.
Thanks. And if anybody, so I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm wearing a headband right now. I'm fair warning. Y'all are going to see me wearing a lot more headbands and hats. If you follow me on Twitter, postpartum hair loss regrowth is a real thing and is a little bit terrifying. So, it's going to be weird for a while. So just wanted to put that out there for everybody. If you know of any cool headbands or hats, send them my way.
Okay.
Thanks everybody.